Hey there, everyone. I am Chief Meteorologist Jackie Layer with another episode of Weather Chat. Today, we are talking about that 2025 Atlantic hurricane season, and I'm joined by meteorologist Brittany Ward. Brittany, how's it going?
Hey, Jackie. How are you doing today?
I am good. Thank you for asking. So, yes, we're talking about that 2025 Atlantic hurricane season. It has wrapped up. It ended November 30th, and we're going to be talking about those notable systems that we had over the course of the season. And we were talking about this prior to this episode about how this season felt spread out.
Yes, very spread out. I feel like we had, that time to kind of take a breath in between each storms. I will say, I do think the beginning, it was kind of a little up there, and then as we head towards like July, it was a little up there, and then it kind of slowed down a little bit. I do remember before this episode we were talking about how the peak of hurricane season, there was no hurricanes recorded in the Atlantic Basin.
Right. and that's unheard of, over the last several seasons have been so active. And also to note with this season is the fact that we had a lot of what I like to call fish storms.
I do have to agree with you on that one.
Yeah, where we have those storms mainly impacting over the water, not impacting a lot of land or a lot of islands, but there were a few systems, out there this year that did catch our attention, that did impact and did, cause some damage. And I think that last one we're talking about, Melissa, was the one that
to remember for sure.
The one to remember, and also the one that will likely go into history books. And also, they haven't made any progress on retiring any names, but we could see Melissa becoming one of those retired names, similar to Katrina. We will never see Katrina on another hurricane list again, and the 2025 Atlantic hurricane season list. Let's get to that. And we're talking about, we'll talk about the recap, another time. That's coming up, but we'll talk about that prediction too. But this is what I wanted to talk about, that 2025 Atlantic hurricane season name list. And yes, we had 13 named storms this season. Yes, and Melissa was that last named storm. Umberto was one that we talked about a lot. Erin was also one that we talked about a lot.
Yes.
We had Category 5 hurricanes. We've had major hurricanes this season. And we'll go over, the tracks of a few of these that did come close, to our area, or even close to the eastern seaboard. But the 2025 hurricane season, that prediction, NOAA put this out earlier this year. They said, 13 to 19 named storms. We had about 13 this year. 6 to 10 of those being hurricanes, major hurricanes, between 3 to 5. The average, the 30-year average from 1991 to 2020, typically we get 14 named storms, 7 of those hurricanes, 3 major hurricanes. Again, that's Category 3 or above. So when we talk about this hurricane season, the recap.
Not too far off. I mean, to me personally, I like the NOAA's forecast because I feel like they were really, really close. I mean, they said, I think 10 to 13 named storms. I think is 13 to 19. I knew I was off. Named storms, and we had 13 named storms.
Right on the cusp of that. Yes.
And then when it comes down to the hurricanes, we saw 5 hurricanes this season, and they went back in their forecast and they said we could see between 6 to 10 hurricanes, I believe.
Yeah, so 6 to 10. Below that.
Just below that, but still not too far off. And then we look at the major hurricanes. Well, we had 4 major hurricanes this year, and they said 3 to 5 major hurricanes possible. So looking at this, I'm like, I'm not too mad because, again, their forecast was not dead on, but it was very, very close.
Yes.
Very close.
Yes. So I completely agree with that as well. Now, this is also to note, first time in 10 years.
Whew.
So we were saying first time since 2015, no hurricanes made landfall in the continental U.S.
And that to me is just so mind-blowing because you kind of think about it, well, Are you sure about that? Like, we haven't seen a hurricane made landfall in the continental U.S. this year? Yeah. And to me, I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
We'll take that.
Yes, we will take that.
Yes. But we did have a tropical storm
Yes.
make landfall this year, and we'll go over that one too. And that one also did bring us some thunderstorm activity across our area, although
Especially here in the DC area. Yeah.
although it was much weaker. But we still had, some remnants of
Yes.
that tropical system right in, I want to say, the middle of July or early
Yeah,
July.
it was right around not New Year's, 4th of
4th.
July. Yeah.
We're getting close to New Year's
we're
now.
getting close to New Year's, which I'm like, I know
a
it's not New
separate
Year's.
celebration.
Yep.
We are getting very, very close to New Year's this year. But we also wanted to mention, altogether, there were 3 Cat 5 hurricanes.
Yes.
And those were Erin, Umberto, and Melissa.
Yes.
Can't forget about Melissa.
That honestly will be the most noticeable, hurricane, or not noticeable, notable
Yes.
hurricane would be Melissa, because Melissa, one, it was the most recent one, but I do think there was so much damage, and Melissa broke multiple records when it comes down to Jamaica making landfall, and then it also tied some records when it comes down to the actual strength of that storm.
Right.
So yeah, those notable storms that we've seen, just this year alone, I mean, I was like, wow.
Yes. And we also put this together just saying these were the ones that we'll probably remember the most from this year.
Yeah.
And that, yes, Melissa, Erin,
Yes.
Umberto, and then Tropical Storm Chantal.
Yes.
So, but we'll certainly have, more on all these storms coming up in our next segment. So be sure to stay tuned, and we will be right back. And we are back with our next segment, still talking about the Atlantic hurricane season for this year. And we're going to go a bit more in depth on
Yes.
those systems 13 named storms in all. And yes, go more in depth with each of those. So here we go. Here's a big map.
Yes.
Showing you all 13 of those systems. Now, before the break, we were talking about how, since 2015, no hurricanes made landfall along the continental U.S.
Yes.
Now, you may be wondering, why is Chantal there making landfall? We said no hurricanes.
Yes, no hurricanes.
Exactly. Chantal made landfall as a tropical storm.
Yes. And like we were talking about before the break, kind of just looking at all of these plots and then seeing the names and the lines going, it indicates that we did have a lot of fish storms this season, indicating that a lot of these storms mainly just stayed out to sea and didn't really have a direct impact on land.
Right.
So I also do think that is part of the reason that we, kind of seen a quieter, I'm doing the quotations,
I know.
quieter
I know.
season, because a lot of these storms mainly just stayed out to sea. They produced some high surf, some rough surf, maybe along the coastline, even parts of the Caribbean. But other than that, a lot of these storms really didn't make landfall.
No, and I'm sure a lot of people didn't even know about Karen.
Yeah.
Karen was all the way out at sea.
Yeah,
yes.
all the way at the top of the screen.
Yep. May have missed that one.
Lorenzo.
Yep.
Jerry.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Fernand.
Jerry.
And then Barry was really the only one that was really, the southernmost parts of the Gulf. Yeah. So, quite incredible that we didn't really have any other, named storms that formed in the Gulf or impacted the Gulf Coast. So at least the Gulf Coast, had a quieter season this year. Yes.
I will say, I feel like Barry was probably the first, real media attention, because if you look at, I think it's Andrea was the first one.
Yes.
You look at Andrea, had a very short lifespan.
Yes.
And then you look at Barry, okay, Barry developed in the Gulf, so now this is the first storm in the Gulf, and then it started moving, out towards Mexico. So then, we started talking about that. We're now looking at it. And then from there, we had Chantel. Then from there, the list keeps going on.
Then we had Dexter. Yes, exactly.
So,
yep.
Yeah.
But I feel like, aside from Chantal at the beginning, then we were really keeping an eye on Aaron. I felt like Aaron really kind of activated us to be like, okay,
to really pay
how
attention.
is this season going to be? It did make that curve just off the coast, so at least Aaron did stay off the eastern seaboard, but it hugged it. Because you do see that light pink line
curving,
right? Yes.
And Dexter, not really much to talk about Dexter, because again, Dexter was just a fish storm. So like you said, all of our attention then just turned to Aaron, because we're like, hey, even I think forecasting Aaron, if I remember correctly, there were so many models that were saying, hey, Aaron could actually hit, Aaron could go into the Caribbean,
right?
Or Aaron could, go into the Gulf. Aaron could hit Florida. It could hit the Carolinas. There was a lot. There was a lot going through. So we're like, okay, let's hone in on Aaron. What is Aaron going to do?
And Aaron was that first Cat 5 of the Atlantic hurricane season. So there was a lot of talk, a lot of buzz about Aaron. But thankfully, Aaron, stayed out at sea and didn't make a major impact anywhere. Which was good.
That was good. And I will say this, Jackie, with this season, this is actually the second time in history that we've seen more than 2 Cat 5 storms in one season. So altogether, we saw 3 Category 5 hurricanes for the 2025 season. That was Aaron, that was Umberto, and that was Melissa.
Yes.
Now, we got to go back to 2005. So that was what? 20 years ago.
And that season was Katrina.
I would say that was Katrina. Wow, that was 20 years ago.
Yes.
Wow, that was 20
this
years
year was
ago.
the 20th anniversary. Yeah. Incredible.
Oh my gosh. And, in 2005, we actually had 4 Category 5 hurricanes. This year, we had 3. So we were just shy of that 2005, season of having those 4.
Yeah.
So I just thought that was pretty interesting, going into the season.
Exactly. And incredible that 2005, was 20 years ago. We were talking about 2015 being 10 years ago as well.
Wow.
But yes, just incredible, some of the facts that came out of this season too.
Yeah.
So let's dive a little bit deeper into, the one that we will most remember from this year, and also thankfully, the last storm of the season.
Yes.
It was Melissa. It formed October 21st, and then it finally fizzled by Halloween, October 31st.
So 10 days of tracking Melissa.
And look at this track. She did meander in the Caribbean, and then it made that turn to the north, intensified, and became that Category 5 hurricane as it approached the western island of Jamaica.
And that is something that I did not want to see at all.
Right? No.
I will be completely honest with you. Thankfully, I have family in Jamaica. Thankfully, they got out. There were some that stayed, and thankfully, they're fine.
Good.
But just seeing this, I'm like, oh, Jamaica is not home for me personally, but that's where my mom's from. Right. So she still considers that part of her home. My entire family on her side, some of them still live in Jamaica. So when I was seeing this, when I was forecasting this, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that Melissa did this. And even going back, like looking back in the records of Jamaica, I mean, Melissa was the first Category 5 storm that Jamaica has ever seen.
Yeah.
And, you got to go back to about, I want to say Hurricane Gilbert was the last very strong storm that they saw. That was actually a Category 4 hurricane.
Wow.
And that was back in 1988. And that had winds up to about 130 miles per hour. So that was the last time that they saw that big of a hurricane. And when you look at Melissa, I'm like, wow, this is the first time that Jamaica has ever seen a storm like this. You look at the infrastructure of Jamaica, you kind of look at the entire island, you're like, oh my gosh, I really hope that, this storm doesn't produce as much or doesn't cause as much damage. So that was just something that kind of broke my heart, just seeing this. And then Melissa didn't only affect Jamaica, it also moved through the Caribbean, infected other islands. And I was just like, wow, this is such a powerful storm.
Yeah, but also I'm glad that you mentioned Hurricane Gilbert from 1988 when you were talking about it was Category 4, winds 130 miles per hour. But when Melissa made landfall on the western side of Jamaica, we're talking Category 5 hurricane, sustained winds 185 miles per hour.
Yeah.
Yes. That just gives you the chills, just knowing.
Seeing that.
Exactly. Yes.
So, I mean, and Melissa just broke, a lot, and I mean a lot of
records.
Yeah, I should say records, but then also tied some records as well, just within the Atlantic basin. So I just looking at the storm, I'm like, wow, this is such a monster of a storm. And again, this is a storm that we're going to see in those textbooks, especially if people who want to go into meteorology, this will definitely be in those meteorologists.
Exactly. I mean, we're talking about the lowest pressure with a hurricane this year was Melissa, 892 millibars.
Yeah.
And when we're talking about the lowest pressures in hurricanes, that is when you know that it's a strong storm. That pressure drops and that system continues to spin up and really continues to strengthen. And it's strengthened over very, very warm waters there in the Caribbean. So really nothing was stopping Melissa from intensifying.
Yes. Yeah, and it only intensified because it moved over those warm waters of the Caribbean. In fact, it really just kind of blew up once it went into those warm waters. So,
then it continued on, made landfall over Cuba as a Category 4, and then continued its trek to the north, finally fizzling out, like I mentioned, right by Halloween.
Yep.
Right by October 31st.
Man.
And that was the last storm of the season. So we were done at the end of October.
Before, And I will say this, at least with Melissa, it looks like Melissa right now, as of now, until they, finish their full reports, Melissa holds or ties the record for third place when it comes down to the most intense storm on record, at least in the Atlantic basin. Right. Hurricane Wilma still had the lowest pressure at 882. Yes. So, that still holds the record of the lowest pressure, but, 882, and then you have a pressure of 892.
Right.
Not too far off, but still very strong, powerful storm that went through.
Right. And we do have two other storms that we do want to talk about, but I know that we're running a little bit low on time. So I do want to talk about that coming up after this short break, so stick around. Hello and welcome back. Yeah, we're going to continue to talk about the hurricanes of 2025.
Yes.
The Atlantic hurricane season. And
Because there are some notable storms in the Atlantic.
Yeah, we just finished up talking about Melissa. Now we want to go on to Hurricane Erin, which was the first Category 5 hurricane of the season.
Yes.
And one of the ones that a lot of people were talking about. I mean, before Melissa, topped those headlines, I felt like Erin probably would have been one of the ones that we would have talked about from this season. So you had Erin form as a tropical storm right off the coast of Africa there, and then it continued its trek just north of those Lesser Antilles there.
Yes.
And just north of Puerto Rico. And I did pause it here, so I wanted to show this. There's that Category 5 signature on that map, and that was by that Saturday. It formed August 11th, and then by that Saturday, 150 mile per hour sustained winds associated with Erin at that point. Yeah. And then it kind of hugged, just outside the Bahamas, just off the eastern seaboard. A lot of people are keeping a close eye on this. This is the height of the summer season, especially up and down the eastern seaboard.
Beach season.
Exactly. I mean, it's getting close to the end of that summer season. I know some schools are back in session by that point.
But it's that last, let me get a beach trip in before the season ends.
Yeah, exactly. So we're talking about rip currents up and down the eastern seaboard. Thankfully, Erin did make that turn. It hugged the eastern seaboard, but I know some of the outer fringes, some of those outer rain bands did impact the outer banks there.
Yes.
Thankfully, no direct impact, though.
Yeah, and, up and down the East Coast, we're talking about beach season. We did see that high surf as well as rip currents. I do think that there were also some reports of, some rip current rescues that were happening on the beaches. I know some of the East Coast beaches ended up closing. You weren't allowed to go on the beach because of those high rip currents as well as high surf. So, yes, Erin did really cause some, issues along the East Coast, even though we didn't have a direct impact with Erin in terms of landfall. We did see, the outer bands of it starting to rough up some surf across the East Coast. And I do know there was tropical storm warnings that were in effect just south of our region, out towards Chicotee, Virginia. And a lot of people go out to Chicotee during the summertime, just, a nice little island to kind of get out and relax. But overall, you have this storm coming, ripping up some surf that's going to cause for some headaches, especially along the beaches.
Exactly. So, like I mentioned, first Category 5 hurricane of the season, but also, it was the first hurricane and then first major hurricane of the season. So I just want to make sure to reiterate that. But also, great facts, Brittany, about the Outer Banks there. Also here locally, what we saw here. Erin, fifth name storm, one of the ones that we talked about a lot around that time. So we had Erin, and then we had Tropical Storm Chantal we wanted to talk about too, just because that one did make landfall.
Yes.
Along parts of South Carolina, but as a tropical storm, not as a hurricane.
Exactly.
So just wanted to reiterate that because we did make note that no hurricanes made landfall along the continental U.S. this year, which is still correct. we did have this storm make landfall, and this was right around that Independence Day holiday.
Yeah,
Right
4th
around July 4th.
of July. So lots of people traveling, heading to the beaches, seeing those fireworks, celebrating America's 249th birthday.
Right? Yes.
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 Okay, I did my I had to think about
'Cause
that.
next year.
Next year is the 250th.
Yeah.
249th birthday of the United States.
Yep.
And it made landfall in South Carolina. And, they saw flooding. They saw heavy downpours. They saw gusty winds. And Jackie, believe it or not, they also saw some tornadoes with this storm as well. From what I found was there were actually 4 EF1 tornadoes that were confirmed with this storm, and about 1 EF0 tornado, and that was recorded in the Carolinas as Chantel was moving through.
Right.
So that was something that was confirmed, but still, I mean, you're out and you are celebrating, and you have severe weather now that you gotta take an account for. So
Right. Yeah. The weather never takes a break.
never takes a break at
Even
all.
on Independence Day. And yeah, I feel like a lot of people forget
Yes.
from year to year that, when these tropical systems make landfall, when we have those winds interacting with the land, you can get those spin up tornadoes
Yes.
pretty quickly. And I mean, they do see that frequently in Florida. But I mean, up and down the eastern seaboard, if we were to have those tropical systems making landfall, yeah, it can spawn quite a few tornadoes associated with it. Yeah.
So I said, wow. And again, this is a holiday. So, a lot of people are out. Maybe, some people are out and not have the correct way to receive weather alerts.
Right.
Because, maybe you're out cooking on the grill and you left your phone in the living room.
Yes.
And you have no way to, receive weather alerts, or you're maybe in the pool.
Yeah.
Some people don't bring their phones
Right.
in the pool, but, it was such a busy time, and this coming through, the beginning of hurricane season, we talked about it, we had that gap in between those storms, so people were probably not even on high alert as
Right.
well.
Right, exactly. You're not focused on that. You are
Yes.
focused on spending time with friends and family
Let's have
around
fun,
that holiday.
let's celebrate.
Exactly. You're not too focused on a tropical system.
Exactly.
So hopefully everyone was, in the Carolinas though. But also to note with this storm that as it moved up, it did, climb close to us, but as a remnant system. So we were able to see some gusty thunderstorms associated with what were the remnants of Chantal, remnants of a tropical system. So here we experienced strong, surf and those high tides and some of those gusty thunderstorms in Maryland. Estimated 18,000 people were without power at one point associated with the remnants of Chantal.
That's a lot of people.
I know. And then also to note is that the Baltimore Orioles, they were home playing against the New York Mets, and that game got delayed
They were
thanks
at
to
Camden Yards.
Yep, thanks to some of these thunderstorms associated with the remnants of Chantal. Some flood alerts were issued for parts of Virginia, and then some of those flood alerts were also as far north as New Jersey.
Yeah. So, I mean, the storm came. Again, it impacted us here locally, even though it was just a remnant.
Yeah.
We still saw, those gusty winds. We saw the flooding. We saw those heavy downpours. That still caused for disruption when it came down to celebrating, the 4th of July. Because I want to say the 4th of July this year was, I think, on a Friday. So it was heading into the weekend, if I'm not mistaken, because I do remember seeing those celebrations, a little bit longer than normal. So I want to say it was on a Thursday or it was on a Friday, and it kind of lingered, into the weekend.
Right. So just wanted to recap, a few of those notable storms that we had this year. Quite incredible in terms of 2025 season. Although, like this one, I remember when we were tracking that one and being like, oh no, what's the rest of the season going to have? Because that was the third storm.
That was the third storm.
Yes.
And, I was under the impression that this third storm, we're looking at, this is from actually the National Hurricane Center. So this is their track kind of breaking down, the major hurricanes, the tropical storms. So you see number 3, that's Chantel.
Yeah.
And, as it moved through us, it was a depression Depression, which Jackie mentioned, you know, the remnants of Chantel,
Yep.
you know, we were like, oh no, is this going to hold strength? Is this going to, you know, bubble up into a hurricane right before it makes landfall? So I remember us tracking this like, man, how is this going to impact people's, you know, travels, holiday, you know, all of that. So,
yeah. So, but also wanted to note how quite a few of these storms did make that curve out to sea. And we like to talk about those fish storms. And yes, thankfully, a lot of them did curve out to sea this season.
Yeah.
And just to wrap up everything that we talked about with the 2025 Atlantic hurricane season, we'll continue to, you know, provide you updates if they are to retire Melissa. I would assume that they would, but we'll continue to give you the latest updates on that. And as always, you know, always tune in to our latest weather updates on the air, online as well. And yeah, we'll have you for that 2026 Atlantic hurricane season. And that will be the hurricane list. We got to go back to 2000, or I almost said 2000. 2020. 2020. Yes, we are repeating that list from that year.
5 years ago.
Yes, so get ready for that. Yeah. Well, that would be 6 years ago by that point.
Yeah, sorry. 6 years ago. See, I knew my math was going to end up being wrong in this episode. I've been doing too much math.
There's a lot of math, a lot of stats. We went through it all. So, again, thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you on the next episode of Weather Chat.